Have you ever loved someone who repaid you with coldness, manipulation, or cruelty? Have you ever walked away from a relationship, a friendship, even a family bond, wondering, how could they treat me like that when all I ever did was care? If that question has haunted you, you are not alone and you are not crazy. There is a deep psychological logic behind why you were treated so badly, even when you only showed love. In this video, we are going to explore that logic through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology. By the end, you will understand not only why certain people treated you the way they did, but also why you were drawn to them in the first place, and most importantly, how to stop repeating the same painful pattern. If this already resonates with you, take a second to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of this Jungian series, and stay with me until the end, because we will move from understanding to specific inner shifts you can start today. Let's begin. Somewhere in your story, there is at least one person who left a mark. It might have been a parent who never seemed satisfied with you no matter what you did, a partner who made you feel like you were always too much or not enough, a friend who used your vulnerability as leverage, a boss or colleague who undermined you then made you feel crazy for noticing it. You tried to be kind, you tried to be patient, you explained yourself, you forgave, you gave them one more chance, more times than you want to admit. And when it finally broke, you were left asking the same exhausting questions. What did I do wrong? Why me? Why do I keep attracting people like this? Jungian psychology would say, you are asking the wrong question. The pain is real. The mistreatment is real. But the story you tell yourself about why it happens is often incomplete. You think it is about your worth, your flaws, your supposed weakness. In reality, what happened has far more to do with unconscious forces, both in them and in you, than with your conscious intentions or how much love you gave. In the next chapters, we will move step by step from the invisible forces that shape how people treat you, to the reasons you unconsciously tolerate or repeat mistreatment, to the moment where you stop playing the same role and begin to live from a completely different center. As we go, if a line hits you or a realization lands, let me know in the comments. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs to finally understand theirs. Jung believed that we do not live only from our conscious mind, the part that says, I'm a good person, I want healthy love, I don't deserve this. Beneath it lies a vast unconscious, containing everything we have repressed, denied, or never fully processed. Old pain, forbidden emotions, disowned traits, childhood conclusions about love and safety, all of this lives there. He called the darker, rejected side of the personality the shadow. The shadow is not just bad qualities, it is anything in you that you learned was unacceptable. Your anger, your needs, your boundaries, your desire to be seen, your capacity for power, even your ability to say no. Those parts do not disappear because you shut them down. They sink below the surface and begin working from the background. Here is the crucial point. Your shadow does not only shape how you feel, it shapes the people you're drawn to, the dynamics you tolerate and the roles you unconsciously step into. You may tell yourself, I only want kind, respectful people in my life. Yet part of you, far deeper than words, is still programmed to repeat the emotional atmosphere you grew up in or the role you learned to play. So when someone mistreats you, it is not simply that they decided to target you out of nowhere. They are acting from their own unconscious wounds and shadow while you are acting from yours. Two unfinished stories lock into each other, like a key and a lock. On the surface it looks like bad luck or fate. Underneath it is a collision of unhealed material. If this idea is landing, stay with me, because in the next chapter we will dive into one of Jung's most powerful insights, projection, how people attack you for what they cannot face in themselves, and how you unconsciously cooperate with that dynamic without realizing it. According to Jung, we rarely see other people as they actually are. Instead, we see them through a filter of projections. Whatever we cannot accept in ourselves, we tend to notice, exaggerate, condemn, or romanticize in others. This is true for the people who hurt you as well. Imagine someone who has buried their own selfishness. They cannot admit that they put themselves first, that they use others, that they struggle to genuinely reciprocate. That quality doesn't disappear, it lives in their shadow. When they meet you, especially if you are generous and self-sacrificing, they may begin to feel subtly exposed in your presence. Your kindness, your openness, your empathy highlight what they are not willing to be. Instead of facing this, their unconscious solves the discomfort by projecting it onto you. You're the selfish one, you're the problem, you're manipulative, you're ungrateful. This is why so many victims of narcissistic abuse are accused of the very behaviors they are suffering from. The liar calls you dishonest, the cold partner calls you distant, the controlling person calls you too demanding as they tighten their grip. They are not describing you, they are revealing themselves without knowing it. But here is the second layer, and it is uncomfortable to hear. The projection does not land on you by accident, it sticks to something in you that is unhealed. If you have rejected your own anger, you may allow others to treat you as if you have no right to protest. If you have rejected your own needs, you may be drawn to people who behave as though your needs truly do not matter. Their projection meets your disowned parts, and a pattern is born. Jung would say that what irritates you, what wounds you, what obsesses you about another person is a doorway back to yourself. This does not mean you deserve their cruelty. It means that every strong emotional reaction has two levels: what they did and what it touches in you that was already there. When people mistreat you, they are not only acting out their own shadow, they are touching the wound your own shadow has been hiding. If at any point you realize, wait, this explains my last relationship, pause the video, write it down, and then come back. Because in the next chapter, we will go deeper into why you keep ending up in versions of the same story, even when the characters change. One of Jung's most unsettling insights is that the psyche is drawn back to unfinished business. What was not resolved in childhood often returns in adult life as repeated patterns, not because you enjoy suffering, but because a deeper part of you keeps trying, over and over, to finally transform the story. If, as a child, you learned that love feels like walking on eggshells, you may find yourself strangely attracted to people who keep you anxious and uncertain. If your parent was emotionally absent, your nervous system may register emotional distance as normal, even as your conscious mind insists you want someone attentive and warm. If you were criticized relentlessly, you may be magnetized to partners who are sharp, judgmental, and impossible to satisfy. You do not choose this consciously. Something in you seeks to return to the original wound, hoping that this time the ending will be different. This is why you can move to a new city, change jobs, leave a relationship, and within a year somehow you are back in a familiar emotional landscape, different faces, same feeling. It begins to seem like fate. Jung would say, when you remain unconscious of the pattern, it feels like destiny. When you become conscious of it, it becomes a choice. To move from fate to choice, you first need to see the pattern in cold daylight. Not just, they were toxic, but what role did I keep playing? What dynamic kept repeating? Where did I ignore the first red flags because the chaos felt strangely familiar? That kind of honesty can sting, yet it is exactly this sting that wakes you up. If you are still here watching, you are already not fully identified with the victim role. Some part of you is stepping back, observing, wanting to understand. Before we move into the next chapter, where we will talk about masks, emotional predators, and why your light attracts certain kinds of people, take a moment to like this video if it is helping you connect the dots. It also helps this content reach others who are stuck in the same painful cycle. Jung used the word persona to describe the social mask we wear to function in the world, the version of ourselves we present in order to be accepted and avoid rejection. We all have one. It becomes a problem when we forget that it is a mask and start believing it is the whole of who we are. Maybe your mask says, I am the helper, I always say yes, I never make a fuss. Maybe your persona is, I am strong and independent, I need nothing from anyone. Maybe it is, I am easygoing. I don't have preferences. I go with the flow. These masks may have kept you safe in your family, in school, in early relationships, but over time they become a kind of prison. They hide your true needs, your true limits, your true feelings, not only from others but from yourself. The tragic irony is that when you live mostly from your persona, you tend to attract people who benefit from that mask. If your persona says, "I never complain," you will meet people who are delighted to give you less than you deserve. If your persona says, "I am here to fix others," you will meet people who expect to be carried. Predatory personalities are often exquisitely sensitive to weakness in boundaries and identity. They can feel when someone is disconnected from their own power. At the same time, many of the people who have been mistreated the most are, paradoxically, the ones with the greatest inner light. Deep empathy, sensitivity, intuition, a strong capacity for love. When this light is not anchored in self-respect and clear boundaries, it becomes a source of food for emotionally unconscious people. They feed on your attention, your guilt, your desire to make things better. They may not do this with conscious malice. They are often simply unable to generate their emotional stability, so they drain yours. Your task is not to dim your light, it is to stop leaving it unguarded. Shedding the mask means beginning to show up as you actually are. A person who has needs, limits, anger, tenderness, and the right to say no. When you begin to inhabit your authentic self, something profound happens. The people who are attracted to the masked, compliant version of you often fall away. They cannot tolerate your clarity, your boundaries, your refusal to play the old role. It may feel like loss, but in truth it is a sorting. Those who required your self-betrayal cannot cross the threshold into your next chapter. The central idea in Jung's approach to healing the entire pattern is individuation. Individuation, in the Jungian sense, is the process of becoming who you truly are beneath conditioning, defenses, and inherited roles. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. And wholeness, in this context, means reclaiming everything you've pushed into the shadow. Your anger, your power, your vulnerability, your ability to walk away, your right to be treated with dignity. This process begins with a decision. I am no longer going to live as a passive character in other people's unconscious dramas. I am going to become the author of my own life. The moment you truly decide this, the pattern of mistreatment is already weakening. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because the version of you who tolerated certain things is slowly dying. From here, individuation unfolds through concrete inner work. You start by recognizing the pattern, noticing how the same emotional themes repeat across relationships, and allowing yourself to see the truth without softening it. You then begin to withdraw projections. Instead of only asking what is wrong with them, you also ask, what in me allowed this? What did I ignore? Where did I abandon myself to keep them? This is not self-blame, it is self-responsibility. The distinction is crucial. Blame traps you in shame, responsibility gives you power. Grief is the next inevitable stage. You grieve the love you did not receive, the childhood you did not have, the apologies that never came, the years spent in roles that were far too small for your soul. Many people skip this and stay stuck in anger. But what you do not mourn, you remain bound to. Letting yourself cry for the versions of you that were never protected is not weakness. It is the beginning of real inner protection. As you grieve, you begin to draw new boundaries, not just with others, but with yourself. You might tell yourself, I will no longer explain my worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding me, or I will no longer stay where I feel consistently unsafe, unseen, or used. At first, these new boundaries feel unnatural, even selfish. In reality, they are the outer expression of a new inner message. I matter. Alongside this, you cultivate what Jung called an observing awareness, the part of you that can notice when you are pulled towards someone who feels familiar and pause before you dive in. You recognize that familiarity is not always love. Sometimes it is just the echo of an old wound. In that pause lies your freedom. Instead of going back to the person who keeps wounding you, you begin to choose people who are steady, kind, and perhaps strangely calm compared to the chaos you once called passion. Dreams, journaling, and honest conversations can all serve this process. Writing about situations that triggered you and asking, "What does this reveal about my shadow?" turns random pain into information. Paying attention to your dreams, recurring symbols, emotional themes, gives you direct access to what your unconscious is trying to communicate. Surrounding yourself with people who are also committed to growth keeps you from being pulled back into environments that depend on your silence and self-abandonment. At some point, you will notice that what once felt normal now feels intolerable. The casual disrespect, the constant walking on eggshells, the emotional starvation. Your nervous system no longer accepts these as the price of connection. This discomfort is not a sign that you are broken, it is evidence that you have grown. The old self, the one who would have stayed, is fading. The new self has different standards. This is also the stage where life will test you. Old patterns might reappear in new disguises. The ex who mistreated you may suddenly change. A new person might show up with the same red flags, wrapped in better language. The test is simple. Will you choose the familiar wound or the unfamiliar self-respect? Transformation is not proven by what you understand, but by what you choose when the old story invites you back. If you have watched all the way to this point, it means something in you is already stepping into a more conscious way of living. You are moving from being lived by the unconscious to beginning to live consciously. That shift changes everything. How people treat you will still reveal their character, but it will no longer define your worth, and it will no longer dictate your choices. You are not what was done to you. You are who you decide to become with what was done. If you want to keep walking this path with Jungian tools, shadow work, dreams, archetypes, relationships, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to hear that the way they were treated was never a measure of their value. Your work now is simple, even if it is not easy. Bring what is unconscious into awareness, reclaim the parts of yourself you abandoned, and live from a place of wholeness rather than woundedness. When you do, the kind of people you attract, the treatment you accept, and the life you create will all begin to shift. The power has never truly been in the hands of those who hurt you. It has always been quietly waiting in you, beneath the pain, beneath the confusion, ready to be claimed.